Okay. All right, guys. Thank you for coming tonight. Of course, this presentation is on Sclerology Studies. It is a webinar to inform you of what we're going to be doing with IIPA certification. I was just explaining briefly to the group that we are going to have a level 1, level 2 sclerology course that will be uh, IIPA will be certifying the students in this. In order to get full certification, both levels will have to be taken. Level 1 will be the basic class, understanding the signs, how they relate, their point of origin, where they end. We will go over the chart in full so that we are all in understanding of that. And it is deep, I'm going to tell you. Sometimes it looks like there's a little bit more on that chart that is what on our basic iridology chart. I don't mean that our chart's basic by any means, because the chart that I use happens to be Ellen Jensen's, and it's very full. It's very full of information. The Sclerology chart by Leonard and Anita tends to contain more things related maybe into the brain area, which I find extremely beneficial when I'm working with clients. So the class, we've talked about that. It could be as long as 16 weeks. It could be as long as 12 weeks. Christos and I are really trying to put this material together, get it in order. I've already started dissecting some from the handbook to put together. He's participating with his case studies. I'm bringing my case studies to the mix, frankly, because we do not know Leonard and Anita's case studies. We know the material. We can add our case studies to that material. But if we used Leonard and Anita's case studies and not knowing the history behind them, that's not going to really leave you with much of a story. You're not going to know any more than I do at that point, and that's not fair. So I'm going to need the time to get this all prepared. It's looking like nothing is going to happen until after symposium, which is after the end of February. So by March, I hope to do a presentation maybe for IIPA in the way of a webinar or just a quick meeting to kind of pull things together and announce a little bit more. But I really wouldn't say anything's going to happen till before April or out until April. So it's a work in progress, as you know, you instructors and those that put webinars together, that use case studies and that teach. It's a lot of work. It's nothing that you can go poof in a weekend and I'm done. It doesn't happen like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the presentation if that's okay. I'm going to close this window. Maybe not. I don't know. Sometimes I figure I can, sometimes I figure I can't. Let me just see what I can do. Let's see here. Yay, there we go. Okay, I'm going to close that window because as I record this, no one needs to focus on me. Okay, we don't need to see all those pictures. So again, this is about Sclerology Studies. This is just a simple introduction to those that are considering learning sclerology. If it's something you think you want to approach right now or, put on the back burner for later, it's okay. There's the presentation. This is just going to kind of roll some of it out. But all of the work that we will be using is written by Dr. Leonard Melmauer and his wife, Nanita. She has done some incredible work with the sclerology classes that they teach. I'm just going to do a brief presentation. It's very mild, very simplified, just so you can kind of see how I'm working with this. I do have a little bit of an agenda. What is sclerology? Sometimes we think we know what sclerology is, and sometimes we're like, really, what is it? What is it? What do we see when we're looking at the sclera signs? The value of sclerology. How important is it? We're going to talk about some layers of information. We're going to talk about congestion and actually what is congestion. Then we're going to just do a real simple little case study, go take you through one of my clients. So that's it. We're going to get going here. So what is sclerology? And I think we all know really what sclerology is. It's when we observe the blood vessels. But this is how it relates to the size of the blood vessels. Where are they placed? What positions do we see them in relation to the iris? What portion of the eye are they in? What quadrant are they in? This is all very important. So when we're taking this in and we talk about the quadrants, we have 4 basic quadrants. Outside of those 4 basic quadrants, we have 4 more. So we say in the class, in the sclerology class, don't go outside of the quadrant. Sometimes the vessel will go outside of the quadrant, but we have to follow that. So you keep it all in the quadrant, and when it goes outside of the quadrant and goes into another area, we're going to focus a little deeper on where that is meandering off to. Now, not in this class for sure, but when we get into deep studies. The sclerology, of course, is going to reflect a deeper state of body systems. Now, one of the things that Leonard said first on when I started studying with him was you can see from the sclera sometimes an event that can occur within a 3-year period. And I was like, wow, that is phenomenal that you could see that. You can actually see the beginnings of something that could manifest. He believes that that's faster than actually what we can see in the iris. I'm not going to get back and forth with him, but what I have studied and what I've learned from his presentation and his case studies, I think he's very much onto something, very much onto something. So we know that sclerology, and this is the true depiction, the true definition of what sclerology is, it is the science of observing markings and colorings in the whites of the eyes as signs of compromised health. Now, in level 1 and 2, we teach and we were taught 10 signs. Those signs are still very important. So no matter how deep we get into sclerology, I never, ever, ever want you to feel like I'm diminishing the 10 signs that we learned in level 1 and level 2 iridology, because we were shown basically where that sclera vessel ends. And that is of great importance as well. But you're going to see when we get into the meat of this that the point of origin, where did that vessel come from? Where in the body did it cross through? Where in the chart can we locate the beginning and the ending? It's going to really start making sense than just focusing on that ending. But that ending is showing us great detail. And when we are iridologists, and that's what we use, is the vessel that's closest to the iris, we are still spot on with what we're seeing. We are very much on target. So sclerology will accompany iridology. It's a beautiful partnership when you think about it. They come together, they mirror each other in a way. They're almost like little twins if you think about it. You think about twins, how they get along so well. It's the kind of the same thing here, you know.
I'm a
So
twin. I'm a
yeah, I
twin
know you're a
too. Get
twin. You
along all the
understand that.
time.
You understand that. So this course hopefully will take you deeper in. It's going to help you more with iridology, but it's really going to give you a lot. If you did know iridology and you just learned sclerology, man, oh man, is it going to give you so much information. So what do we see? When we look at this picture, when we look at this slide and we see all of these vessels, and it looks like a road map. I know it does. And I would look at that and say, it looks like a road map to me. Where in the world do we start? Well, there is a starting point. But what do we see when we look at this? Well, one of the things we see is we see the cause and we see the effect. Now, I don't know how much we see in in iridology. Do we see the cause? Sometimes we do. Sometimes we do. So we still see that in sclerology. We see early development. Somebody's coming in. We see the early development of tissue growth. What is a way to say that? Early development of tissue growth. We see early signs of something that is bigger to happen. Let me just state it that way. We're very cautious about the words we use in sclerology, just like we would iridology. We want to use our terminology, and in no way what way so ever would sclerology be a way of diagnostics. But yet, when we look at it, it brings things closer to us. It brings things a little bit more into our vision as iridologists. Okay. And I hate using that word, diagnostics, but when we are evaluating systems, when we are doing our work as iridologists and we are careful about our words, we're careful about the choice and the way we phrase things. When you know what you know about sclerology, it deepens what you think you know about iridology, if that made sense to you. I think I made sense to me, but I hope I made sense to y'all. We're going to absolutely be able to look in the eye and see our relationships based on sclerology, based on the vessels that we see. That's going to be due to signs related to emotions. Okay. I love that part of it. I absolutely love it. Emotional factors related to organ function. This will be called negative reaction emotions, NREs. So when we see these, and he has acronyms for everything. I'm having to learn a whole new way of talking as well. And it can get quite carried away, but we will see NREs in the eye, and these negative reaction emotions will have an impact on the physical. So that takes things a step further for us. We do see a sense of urgency when we're looking at the sclera. We can look at the markings, and based on the thickness and the color, we know it's time to start moving in a direction. And I don't know about you, but I know my limits as an iridologist. And when I look in the eye, if it is something that I think is bigger than the direction I can help my client, I will say every time, let's get a medical doctor involved. Okay. So I know what I can do and what I can't do. And it is never without my scope to say, you know what, we need further help. Or I might direct them to, a naturopath or acupuncturist or somebody like that. I know what I can do. I know what I can't do. So this will tell us that sense of urgency on how quick to work with our clients. And it is validity for iris emotions. So when we see things in the eye, we relate that back to an emotion. The sclera is just clapping for us, going, you are right. Go, girl, go. Because yes, that is exactly what's going on. So, the sclera and the iris They're just sweet twins. Um, the benefit of using sclerology is that you really don't need a camera to do this. I mean, you can do this, you know, right from a chair. You might need a little bit of light, but just having the client move their eye up, down, in and out, and this way and that way, you're still able to look. You don't need fancy equipment to do this. Now, with iridology, I do need my phone or I need my special little camera to do this. But the sclera pretty much shows you what you need to see, based on the fact that you're going to stay within those quadrants. The value of sclerology is that it gives you a better understanding on how to work with your client. And since I have been practicing this and following everything Leonard has taught me, I can validate that this is a true sentence. It shows you the effect on how emotions relate with the physical. It shows you how healing can occur when we change that diet or we make these modifications, or people just up and say, you know what, I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it today. If you look at them 6 months later, the sclera will show you, you know what, they did do something. There's an interruption in that vessel, and there's a fading of that vessel. And you're like, wow, you did do something. I'm impressed. It is working for you. I think it's easier to see that in the sclera than it is in the iris. Vessels seen in the sclera relate to stress and congestion, and that's one of the first things we're going to learn in lesson 1 is that all of the vessels that you see in the sclera are based on stress and congestion. And guess what? You can't have congestion without having stress. So those two things go hand in hand as well. And I'll get on to that. We're going to talk about congestion in just a minute. So I've taken this right eye to show you just kind of some different markings. We want to look as far at the beginning of a vessel that we can see. So I've got a right eye here, and I've got this gold arrow going to the thickest, darkest sclera marking. Actually, this is in the episclera. This is where we're seeing this. This marking is going, and it's a physical marking, and it's going into the right lung. Now, we know that the lung is over in this direction. If we look at this, we've got a nice little vessel. It kind of meanders here in the middle, and then it straightens out like an indicator. That's what we learned in level 1. It is moving into the lung area, the right upper lung. Okay. So we've got this green arrow that is showing us that portion of this is in the left lung. Now, I know I just said the right lung, and it's the right iris. Here's one of the little tricks that we didn't learn in iridology about this part of sclerology, is that the right and left lung show up in the right sclera, specifically the medial section of the sclera. So this is the right lung, and this is the left lung. Now, if we're looking at two different lungs, we're looking at the same vessel. Which one do you think is having the most trouble, the right lung or the left lung? The left lung, because we've got the meandering part. It is still red. It still does not mean that the right lung is not without its weakness. It means that the left lung is having to work a little bit harder to catch up. Okay. So I may have told you something that you're probably going, now, what did you just say? What did you just say? I'm going to repeat this. When we're looking at the lungs in sclerology, the lungs, the left and right lung, show up in the right medial quadrant of the sclera. Okay, I got that clear. When we look at this indicator vessel, Yes, again, it is showing us the lung. But what about this? What is dropping off of that vessel? This will be an IC line, not icy, not ICY, the letter I, the letter C. It stands for immune compromise. So, do we think that with an immune compromised line, now this would be tangential vessel if we're following iridology, but in sclerology, we're going to refer to as immune compromise. Do we think for 1 second that the lungs are not compromised by a wonky immune system? Yes, it's telling us that. It's showing us that. We see that. Now, when we look a little further down, this blue arrow is showing us an area of the venous heart or the venous heart. Okay. Lack of oxygen, poor oxygen return from the venous system. Okay. So when we're looking at this, it's not as dark and it's not as thick as this up here. This is showing you the lungs are struggling. But now the story deepens. The plot gets a little bit thicker here. We've got an immune compromise sign that's moving into some venous congestion. Something's going on with the venous side of the heart and that oxygen exchange in the lungs. Now I'm going to pull over here and go to this gold circle. Everything that you see within this circle is related to the immune system and the lymphatic system. Well, what did I just say this was? Immune compromise. This is showing us that it is pretty sticky situation. To what level? I don't know. I'm not going to know till I really talk to the client and I start asking questions and I go through my Q&A basically with them. We're going to take a look at this little yellow arrow down here and look, it's meandering, but look, it's pointing. It's another, it almost comes off as another indicator vessel and it's going into the liver. So again, the plot is now starting to thicken. We've got a situation where we've got some serious breathing issues going on. We've got lung trouble. We've got immune situation where the lymphatic system and the immune system are working against us. They're not fully on board with helping us clear this up. The oxygen exchange in the venous heart area is not good. So you would formulate your questions based on what you're seeing here and how in the world are we going to help this client? We're going to talk to them as much as we can about their lungs. Now, I know that the lungs show up over here on this side. This would be mostly, no, I'm sorry. The lungs show up right here. We're looking at a right eye. So the lungs show up here. We cannot see anything under this flash. We can't see. I can't tell you if there's an open lacuna here. I can't tell you if there's a lacuna here. I cannot see a pigment under here because this ruins the picture for me. But you know what? When I can see it, I'm going to add it into the mix. I'm going to bring that iridology and that sclerology, what I see here. But my goodness, this has already told us a huge story about what's going on. So does that make sense? Just somebody give me a thumbs up or a yeah or okay, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about 3 layers of information. It's real simple. This isn't hard to follow right here. We've got the deepest, darkest layers that are going to tell us about the physical that's going on. This is your physical signs. This is how you read this is going on. It's been going on. It's happening now. And based on the redness and the thickness of it, that's telling us we got to get on this and we got to get on it now. We don't have any time to waste. So this is seen, the darkest layers are seen at the episclera layer. The middle layer is where we can see the physical and the emotional aspects in the conjunctiva. This would be a physical line and this line coming off of that would be your physical and emotional line. This is going to tell you that whatever is going on in this area is also going to be tied up to the physical, but as emotional as well. So let's just say for a second that this is going into the liver. We're going to absolutely be able to tie in that there is an emotion that is part of the underlying cause of this. Now we've got to get to it. I know that when I do iridology and I look into the liver areas, the liver, the gallbladder, we see that in the left, we see the liver gallbladder in the right, we see two portions of the liver in the left, and we talk about this. We can talk about emotions. I mean, I always bring that up. But when you look in the iris and you're using iridology, you're not always clear that this is emotionally related. The sclera is the one that comes along and says, they can try to tell you that it's not emotionally related, but I'm going to tell you that it is, because here's the sign. Here's the sign. Now we can go back into the conjunctiva and we're looking at pure emotional signs. Those are going to look a little straighter to us, a little thinner and a little finer. When they're real close to the sclera, you know you're onto something. But still out here, it is still an emotional sign. Now, can people get past those emotions, put those emotions behind them, heal, and progress forward? Sure, they can. And that's probably what you're looking at in this case because they're so far back. Our case study is going to show you some real good emotional signs. So I want to get on to that. So the blood vessels that we see related to sclerology, those blood vessels are not nourishing our eye. They're showing us conditions in the body. They are not going to supply any type of blood or nutrients to the eyes or to the sclera itself. Okay, so we learned this in anatomy. The choroid and the ciliary body, that is the area that supplies nutrients to our eye, and that's what you're looking at is a cross-cut view of the choroid and the ciliary body. So this is highly magnetized. One of the things that we did not learn is that this area is referred to as a tunic layer. So I'm just going to walk this around the block just for a second. It's not a big deal that we know this, but if you are sitting in any classes with ophthalmologists or optometrists and they refer to the tunic layer and you go, huh? What is that? What is that? There's 3 tunic layers, and it's just like we learned in iridology. You've got an outer layer, you've got a middle layer, you've got an inner layer. So the outer layer is more of a fibrous tunic. You have a vascular tunic, which is that middle layer. And then you have the nervous tunic, which is going to refer to the retina. So it's real simple. It's not anything that, we did. If you didn't learn it in level 1 and 2, don't feel bad. We're learning it now. So I just wrote this out for you, so you've got this down. But it's just like we learned outer, middle, and inner. Same thing, just has a different little bit more of a progressive name to it or a true name to it. So that's the tunic layers of the eye. We see it again here. I don't believe in just giving you one picture. I've got to give you several. So we see that fibrous outer layer here. We see that third layer, the nervous. We see the vascular. This is what supplies nourishment to the eye itself, sclera. Here again, another section that we can see of it. So I just want y'all to get the full gist of this. Let's talk about congestion, because I said stress leads to congestion. So what is congestion? How do we get congestion? You get congestion from stress. But what does congestion look like? Well, congestion is changes in the blood viscosity, okay? Toxic involvement, parasites, engorgement of fluids, hardening of arteries, loss of tone, diminished function, drug embedment, necrosis, negative emotions. This is all congestion coming from stress. When they say that stress is a killer, we better believe them. We better believe them. Okay, we're getting to the fun part. And this is a client, 60-year-old female, one girl. She's in that one girl position. If y'all haven't studied birth order, I would suggest you find a class and get into birth order, because birth order is just going to help you a little bit further understand a little bit more about your client. She came with menopause symptoms, having lack of sleep, feeling agitated, having a racing mind, angry, intense feelings. Noted that she had a good relationship with her mother. Father's relationship wasn't so great, but she did have a good relationship with her husband and her son. Now, pretty simple. I mean, it's kind of straightforward here. Basic iridology is going to tell us that we've got a mixed biliary eye with ferrum chromatose. We have a very mild scurf rim going around. We have a neurogenic structure, small pupils. So we know that we're looking at somebody that stays focused and stays alert. Of course, we've got that race. Why wouldn't we have a racing mind if we have a neurogenic eye with small pupils like this? It's probably going nonstop. Got a little bit of pupil flatness superiorly in the medial section, upper medial section in both eyes. We've got some mild contraction furrows. We've got the rings of freedom, the scurf rim, rings of purpose at the scurf rim, sorry. So we look at this and we see a personality pattern of a stream jewel. Well, stream jewels can feel pretty intense sometimes. So we know that. But we want to know, why does she stay on all the time? Why are we having trouble with the sleep? Why do we have that racing mind? We also know about the stream jewels is that they're driven. We know that about that neurogenic personality with the small pupils. They are driven. They can seem very calm on the outside, but there's a lot of buildup going on the inside. And, we talk about this in iridology. One of the things we want them to do is stop and smell the roses. And when you tell them to do that, they're like, no, I can't. I've got to keep going. I've got to keep going. I don't have time to do. I'll do that when I retire. They tend to be very articulate speakers as well, visionaries. So those are personality things that we know. We've learned all that from iridology. But if you take a look at this sclera, look at that sclera. I first saw that and I was like, whoa, this is going to be fun. I can't wait to get into this, and it turned out to be a great bit of fun for me. So I'm going to push you into it as well. Okay, so when we look at this, we're looking at that right iris. We're going to take a look at that. We're looking at where the black, let me get my cursor going. We're looking at this black arrow and we see a point of origin. This is where the vessel begins. It's way back here in that corner of the canthus. We're looking in the emotional heart area. If you just recall the description I gave you, not a great relationship with father. You're going to see a lot of that come through that emotional heart in areas of regarding parents. I want to say that, regarding parents. So when the relationship isn't strong, chances are you're going to see that. So we've got this emotional heart beginning back here, and where it stops right here happens to be in the esophagus and the emotional breast area. Okay, so emotional breast, nurture, nurture. Okay. In behavior iridology, that's actually where nurture is. Nurture is right here. So I'm going to put two and two together and think at some point in time, I may need to ask questions about father. I'm going to keep going and kind of save that for the last. I'm not just going to throw it out there, but I am going to save it for the last. Um, the point of origin for this green vessel, when we look at this, it is also in the E heart moving into the back. So the emotional heart comes out and look, it goes down. So we've got a little bit of a tangential vessel already here. This is showing us the back, the area of the back. We're going to see that right in this area. And when I ask about that, any back problems, any back weakness, any pain in the spine, she was, yes, very much so. So that was pretty easy. Now let's go down to this little light green vessel that we see right here. And this is going up from the uterus. It starts way down here, starts in the uterus, and it goes up and it connects with the back. So now we've got the E heart moving into the back, and we have it moving into the uterus. So my job is to make a connection there. Why do I see a thicker line here? Why do I see a thicker line here? What does that have to do? So I'm just going to put that on the back burner for just a minute, and we're going to go through some of these other signs. Where we see, let's go up here. Where we see these two gold arrows up here. This marking is showing us the lung. So this is moving down into that lung area. So again, I see some things. I've got a contraction furrow running through that lung. I may ask a question about that. There's just some things I might want to ask about in the lung. Now, if I wanted to branch off and talk about how that is emotionally related to maybe some grief, could that be grief that she's holding because of a lack of a relationship with her father? It's possible. It's possible. Again, I'm going to hold my emotional questions or questions about emotion. I'm going to hold those back. I'm not just going to throw those out there while I'm doing the physical. I'm going to wind them back in together. I'm going to let them come in and mingle in just a little bit. I'm looking at the light blue arrows that we see here. We see that IC line. Okay, so this light blue arrow is coming, and let me check the chart for just a second. That's coming out of that immune system, okay? That's part of that lung area. Actually, it's coming out of the interventricular veins. That's where it's coming from. Drops down into that tangential vessel, and it's giving us an IC line. So it is saying the immune system is compromised due to what we're seeing with the lungs and the venous system. But now, as I'm looking further, I've got an emotional sign coming through. I've got another emotional sign, those faint, straight lines coming through. These are called Oedipal, sorry. It's spelled with an O. Some people say Oedipal, some people say edible. I need to say edible just because I need to say edible. So that's what these are. When we see these are emotional signs related to possibly the immune system and the lungs. So again, I am showing what I think or what I'm seeing is signs that could be related to grief. And I do believe that it is grieving a relationship or lack thereof with a father. Now, I'm going to take you back. I'm going to go back to that one girl position. Her place, her connectivity to a parent is going to be with father. But if father rejects that, if father says, no, my place is with the son, your place is with the mother, What does that put on a child? That's some deep, heavy stuff. It may not be the father that grows up and gets older and says, did I do something wrong? It is the child left with that emotion from being shunned, being pushed away. Now, the child probably loves the mother just as much as the child loves the father. But think about that for a minute. Think about you, number one, girls, having your father say, no, you belong to your mother. Your brother belongs to me because he's male. Think about that for a minute. That's pretty harsh. Of course, I would see emotional signs related to that. Okay. So I want to give y'all something to think about as you build your questions and things that you're going to walk through and ask your client later on. Here we go. We're back into that right iris, and we can see the thickness of this vessel a little bit more. Let me start up here with the black vessel. This vessel is coming from the thyroid and parathyroid area. Now, one of the things that Leonard teaches, and I just love that he teaches this, is when we talk about the thyroid, if we talk about that gland as a receiving gland, we know that it receives iodine, it receives messages from the pituitary, and we know the function of a thyroid gland. But let's talk about it from an emotional standpoint. We know that it sits around our neck like a bow tie. Looks like a little butterfly or a bow tie sitting right there at our neck and throat. But for purposes of emotions, it's like a little sensor that we all wear around our neck. And it picks up all the emotions that come down the pike. And it senses and it stores. And it is the most sensitive of our glandular organs for picking up emotions. And when I thought about that for a minute, I thought, golly, I think he's right about that. And when we know people that have gone through life, the majority of their life, holding emotions, holding hurts, holding angers, holding lack, holding guilt. And I thought about how the thyroid could have picked all that up. Somehow or another, it made some sense to me. I don't even know that I can articulate how it made sense to me, but it was like a lightning bolt went off in my head, and I was like, gosh, I think I get that. I really think I get that. Now, the parathyroid and the thyroid, we know they share space. The parathyroid glands sit behind the thyroid glands. But when we look at these two, by far, the parathyroid gland is showing us that there's a great amount of stress. Equally so, the thyroid could be stressed, but look how it connects here, and it connects into that emotional heart. Wow. Now I think, gosh, Leonard is right. Leonard is right. When the emotional heart and the thyroid come into connection, we've got some serious emotional things that could be going on. So again, not going to just blurt it out. I'm just going to hold back on it. I'm going to sit on it. I'm looking at this and I'm trying to stay about 2 steps ahead of my client in order that if she asks questions, I will have an answer, but I still want to be ahead of her because I'm processing this as we're talking, as we're speaking, as we're having our session. My mind is trying to work about 200 miles an hour faster than hers, and hopefully it will continue to do that. When we look at this light blue arrow here again, it's showing us how this is moving into the back. This comes from the uterus. Here is our spine. How is that affecting her? Does she feel like she's carrying things on her back? Does she carry emotion in her back? Is she like what Tony Miller says, holding the issues in her tissues? Sure she is. Does she have back pain and back problems? Sure, she does. Why? Did she slip and fall? Did she hurt it? Was there a disc injury? What is this all related to? This is how you're going to formulate your questions. So this is all going to come together. Now, one of the things, this branch from this gold arrow and this gold arrow, both of these come down from the cranial nerve area. Sorry. I'm looking at the arrow and saying arrow. It comes from the cranial nerve arrow. They crisscross, which I find to be kind of interesting. And this one, I'm going to follow it out. It moves right up to the emotional stomach. This comes down from the head area, actually the pituitary, and it stops in the emotional stomach. You can see just a little bit of a hook on this end, but where they meet, that's what I wanted to focus on. Now, I asked the client about her glandular system. Did she feel weakness in the glandular system? Did she feel like, I asked her due to blood work that she'd had, was her sugar elevated? Let's talk about the adrenal glands. Let's talk about the thyroid. She felt the thyroid was a little bit wonky. She wanted to talk about that. I wanted to know the effect of the emotional stomach. How is that affecting her? So I believe that we did discuss that. But one of the things that I found later on is what is the involvement with the cranial nerves and the pituitary? This is what I found doing some research. I've done quite a bit of research in cranial nerves, but I needed to know more. So I found out that if there is a pituitary tumor, now I cannot look in this woman's eye and know that she has a pituitary tumor. Even if I thought she had a pituitary tumor, would I say something? Absolutely not. I would not say anything about that. I would ask questions. I would not say anything. I would not direct that conversation down that path. But if there is a pituitary tumor, cranial nerve number 3, number 4, and number 6 could be involved. You could have, let me see, hang on just a minute. You could have pituitary apoplexia, okay? And that would put cranial nerve palsy, especially into cranial nerve number 3. So I did not ask any questions about that. I was concerned about that, but I did not ask any questions. I'm going to tell you more of the story later on as we get, I'm sure y'all have questions. Let's move down into the left iris and see what we've got going there. So we've got these 2 gold arrows down, pointing down at these 2 vessels. That's going to be coming from the parathyroid and the thyroid area, just like we saw on the other. This is going to be connecting to that esophagus and breast area. Again, it's going to be moving right into our back. Now, this looks to me like it's more upper back. About this area where I want to focus on probably goes right to lumbar, not as far down into the sacral area. But if we look again, it starts to thin out. It starts to thin out. Does she have back pain? Yes, she confirmed that. She is concerned about that thyroid. She's getting to the age that the parathyroid needs some focus. She, remember, is menopausal, so we've got to pay attention to that. Here again, we've got pupil flattening. This pupil to me looks like almost like a stop sign. So there was lots to talk about in that particular area as well. Right here, this comes out of the thymus. So it originated at the thymus, and as we follow it out, when we look to this, it again is going in to that lung. It stops right here. In iridology, we're taught to look just over to the next area. This would be in the lung. So again, there's questions that are coming up from that area. The blue arrow is showing us this vessel, which is up in the area of the medulla. Now, that let me show you these vessels right here. And I didn't bother to label them because they really don't, they're not a part of the story. They're part of her story, but this is mostly the shoulder and in kind of the neck area. But I wanted to focus on this. Why wouldn't I? Because it's darker, it's deeper, it's richer. It could be telling me something more about those cranial nerves. It could be telling me that's one of the reasons that she's not sleeping so good. She could be having some issues. She could be having difficulty swallowing because of the medulla, but she could also be having difficulty swallowing because of the thyroid. So these are things that we kind of have to patch together, and we can do this. We could do it all in an hour. If you did nothing but sclerology, and occasionally put your focus over here in the iris, you would still be able to come out with a very rich report for that client. So the sclera, based on what we saw with this client, the sclera is showing us from the right eye reflects the physical and emotional issues that the client is experiencing, and this is the relationship with father. The relationship with the menopause, parathyroid, thyroid that we see on both sides, this is also concern. Possible cranial nerve issues reflecting from the cranial nerve itself and then the medulla. So we'd want to follow up on that. The esophagus and the emotional breast is related to speaking, to swallowing because of that esophagus, and emotional nurture. We're going to go back to nurture. So your questions are going to determine how you're going to help your client. When you're asking the questions, relate these things back to the emotions, like to the back and the spine. Is that about moving forward in life? Has she moved forward from the hurt she felt from her father? It was heavier on that right side than it was that left. But you know what? That spine is in the center. That's why we can see reaction or vessels on both sides. But has she moved on? I think that was probably the crux of a lot of her issues, was that lack of relationship that she was destined to have with dad, but he kind of squashed it. Thyroid, speaking or saying what you need to say, suppression of words and emotions, that's always a biggie. We want to talk about that. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much how you go in, you take a look at the point of origin, you look at the ending, you put it together, just like you're doing with iridology. But sometimes I believe that it tells you a little more. So, okay, guys, talk back to me. Tell me what you think about this. Did it make sense to you? Do you see it deeper or not?
Thank you for that, Kathy.
You're
That
welcome, Cheryl.
was really, really good. I have so many questions, but you can't answer them until I get into the class because why?
Based on that client, though, did you see how that kind of came together better than just looking at the iris
Well, I don't
for
know what
emotions?
her complaint was when she came to you, and I don't know what her entire history is. It seems like there are some gaps, which, you know, we all have those gaps when we see
Mhm,
clients.
mhm.
But I guess what I would like to know is how did she feel about your assessment?
You know what? She, this is so funny that, yeah, she liked it. She really, really liked it. After we had this session, she was like, wow, I had no idea that you could tell me as much as you told me. And she said, I did not know that iridology and reading the sclera went together like it did. So she was pretty amazed. It was her first time to have a session. And she walked out and she was like, I know a lot more than what I did when I came. And that was the purpose. And what she came for were basically menopausal symptoms. Um, if you look at the iris, though, her iris showed a lot of connectivity to a person that's having some issues. The Based on her structure and based on her constitution of being very stream jewel, the racing mind, the um, she's a powerful woman. Let me just say that she's a strong, powerful woman, and she was being thrown off track by these menopausal symptoms. Why am I not able to sleep? I was able to sleep before. Why is my mind racing? Why do I feel so anxious? But I think where we went deeper with her, when we kind of opened that can of worms about dad, when she kind of let on to me that she did not have a great relationship with her father. It was good with her husband and son, but it was not good with her dad. That had a lot to do with her culture, I found out. And I said to her, I said, you were cheated out of a relationship with your father. He was there at home, but he would disregard you and your words. And I'm sorry for that, that you did not get to have a relationship with him. But what is it like now? And she stressed, well, it was somewhat better because she was a grown woman, 60-year-old woman. And he was much older, but she felt like it was still strained. And she said, I feel cheated.
Mm.
My brother got the best of him.
Mm.
And that's not anything that you can fix in one session. That's not anything that you can fix in an iridology session. It's not anything that you're going to fix in a sclerology session. You're just going to go deeper and find out how everything is emotionally entwined, if you will, and direct her to further help. And I did. I suggested to get a psychologist on board or someone that you trusted that you could talk to and talk to in an open manner without it being a family member. You want a professional that you can bend their ear. I said, you could take this to your mother, you could take this to your cousin, you could take this to your best friend, but I don't believe you'll find a solution there. I said, you'll get some tools if you go and speak with a true counselor or psychologist. So that's pretty much where I left it. I did not really suggest a lot of things to her. One of the biggest things I did suggest to her was for her to journal. And I said, please write your father a letter that you will never send him, but open up and spill your heart out onto these pages. Say what you need to say within these pages. I said, he's never going to see it. If you hid it underneath your bed, that man is never going to find it. So you are not ever going to have to share this with him. But pour your heart out and how you felt about this and talk to him about your loss. That you would like to have known more, or you would have liked to have felt more loved, or you would have liked to have been held as a child. That it's okay to cry, that it's okay to say what you need to say. I'm your dad. I want to listen to you. Fathers should say those things, but sometimes they don't. And in this case, it was due to cultural differences. He's not going to budge. So she's left. She's left in that. What do you think, Brenda? What do you think? Give me some feedback.
Oh, I thought your talk was great. Uh, I was following along with
The
Leonard's
chart, yeah, good,
chart
good.
when you're going through everything, going, "Oh yeah, look at that," and it's going this way, and
Yep,
So I was following along. I guess my question is, my issue with clients is giving them too much information.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
if I'm going to sit with a client like that, and I'm going, okay, parathyroid, thyroid, lung, immune, I'm going all these things. It's like, whoa, I can't sit there and tell them all those things. And, I want them to feel empowered. So I guess my question to you is, how you approach this lady, because if you are going, tell her all these things in 1 hour, it's going to be like
It is.
overwhelming.
It is. It is
So,
overwhelming. And just like you said, we can't say so much with fear of scaring them away. And that's
right.
never our intention. We know that. It's like we have to go in there and pick our battles. So I'm looking for like versus like. I'm looking for reasons as to why I see grief. Am I seeing that in the lung? Am I seeing some of that come from the thyroid? Am I seeing some of that coming from another direction? I'm trying to put all that together, and I try really, really hard to save that emotional talk towards the end. But as I talk to them about lungs, I will say things like, now you know that the lungs have an emotional attachment, and that is going to be to grief. And some people will say, yeah, yeah, I do know that, or yeah, I feel that, or yeah, I can see that. And I've had my share of grief over that. Yes, I completely understand. Um,
Kathy,
I
you have a
just,
comment.
I kind of try to get a feel. Do they want to go a little deeper? And I'll say, is this something that you feel like is pressing? And sometimes they'll say, yeah, I think I need to talk about this. And then the story keeps coming out and it keeps coming out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm in. So I'm here because I was already in anyway. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I'm,
think we all are excited
yeah,
and we're in to get
yeah,
this sclerology down.
yeah.
Um, the things I believe that sclerology is going to uncover for us as iridologists, when we put these two things together, it's going to open up a whole new world for us. And like I said to you, I'm trying to think 2 steps ahead of my client. I am processing this information. I can't believe my mind is still able to work as fast as what it does, uh, because I'm trying to stay ahead of the curve and put this together, put this together, and put this together while we're talking, and while I take pictures of their eyes, I've already got their personality down. So
Mhm.
before I stick my little card back into my computer, um, I know personality and I know what to expect. That's about in the first 30 seconds. So I'm already ahead of that curve. I probably know what they're going to say or probably know what they're going to do. It's putting the sclera vessels together, putting those together with the iridology part of it is where I've had to step up and be a little bit faster, you know, see it all come together. Um, just
Okay.
so I know the right questions to ask. I think one of the things, and we don't hover a lot on this when we're teaching iridology or focusing on iridology. I have tried to, because I've had students tell me this, help me formulate the right questions to ask. So I believe, Brenda, I was teaching one of your class. You had invited me to come on and speak at one of your classes,
Mhm.
and one of your students said, "How do I know what questions to ask?" And
Mhm.
I was like, "Ding, ding, ding! I've been doing this 30 years. I know the questions to ask. If you know anatomy and physiology well, like we should, the questions will just come to you. They come boom, 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 boom. Not everybody's that confident, and not everybody knows at that moment what are the right questions to ask. So now when I teach, I formulate these questions and I'll tell my students it's very appropriate to ask this question, this question, this question. And I open that up to the physical, I open that up to the emotional. And I say, just that's how you're going to get to the bottom of this is asking the right question. Sometimes you can ask a question one way and the client goes, I don't know. And then you turn around and you ask it another way and they go, oh, I got it. Now I got it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I think part of being a good iridologist, being a good sclerologist, being a good counselor, being a good listener, is forming those questions, putting those all together. It is, I think I've elevated my teaching by including questions so that my students can pose those to their clients and think about that. But that's the biggest part of it. Are we asking the right questions?
Have you found that when you really zero in on the emotion seems to have more weight than a physical complaint?
That's a good question, Cheryl. Um, I would tell you about 70% of what I see we backtrack that into an emotion
Mhm.
with clients. Because I might ask them, well, how did you feel before that accident happened? And you'll hear people say, well, you know what? I just broke up with my sweetheart. My mother and I just had an argument and I was very upset with her. Or, it was just, right after a divorce that this happened. One of the stories that I wrote in Cranial Nerves and Muscle Mapping about tic douloureux. I knew a lady that developed tic douloureux, and it was shortly after her husband walked in and said he wanted a divorce. She had a 15-year-old son. Now she had two grown children that had already grown, gotten married, moved out of the house. But it was just her and her 15-year-old son, and he walked in and said, after 30 some odd years of marriage, I think I want a divorce. And she was like, what? What did you say? And it totally caught her off guard. And I don't want to say lived in the lap of luxury, but she did not have to work. She was quite taken care of. She had everything she wanted. And I mean, it kicked into full drive. What am I going to do? How am I going to make money? Is he going to pay child support? What is going to happen? What is going to happen to us? Does he want the house? All these things went through, and she went through all of these emotions. And that cranial nerve number 5 sent her a message, and it caused this tic douloureux to develop, and her cheek was numb and very, very cold. She couldn't touch it. She couldn't put a washcloth to her face. She couldn't put a warm compress to her face. She couldn't hardly wash her face without screaming. She couldn't brush her teeth without screaming. If she cried, a tear trickled down her cheek, it would hurt. Her eye hurt, her head hurt. And she said, I feel like someone took an ice pick and stabbed it into my cheek. It happened to be on the right side of her face that this happened, her male side. And when you ask her further, how did you feel when your husband walked in and announced he wanted a divorce? I feel like I was stabbed in the back. That's not too different than being stabbed with an ice pick in the face. You see what I'm saying? She used that analogy. So she went through doctor after doctor after doctor to find out what in the world was going on. They finally diagnosed it as tic douloureux and said, we can come in here and we can cut that nerve right here in your cheek. That's trigeminal third nerve that we can come in here and we can cut that. But your face might fall, might droop for the rest of your life. Looks like you have Bell's palsy. She was saying, no, thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't think I want to go that route. She went and she got professional counseling. Within 6 months, the pain was gone. She needed someone to talk to. She did not need a surgery. She did not need numbing pills. She did not need anything except a shoulder and a willing participant that was willing to hear her out and help understand where she was coming from. So her problem was deep-seated emotion that manifested into something very physical and very, very painful. And she went on and she did get the divorce, and she continued to love that man from afar till the day he died. He never came back, but she continued to love him till the day he died. And I believe that she is 91 years old today, and she is in no pain. and everything is good, and she lives a fabulous life. And that was just something that happened a long time ago. But that's life. That's life. When somebody kicks us and hurts us and gets us down, we feel that pain, and if we allow it, it will manifest in a physical way. So the purpose of writing her into my book in the first place was to talk about how serious cranial nerve number 5 can be if it is not paid attention to. If a virus sets into cranial nerve number 5, I've had that happen. It's a booger too, let me tell you. It is not a picnic. And I had that happen to me coming back from an IIPA conference from Las Vegas. Las Vegas nearly killed me. But it took about 3 weeks and got rid of that virus, and everything was okay. But nevertheless, it was worth writing about. So 70%, Cheryl, I think. I'm just going to pull a number out of the sky and say 70%.
Well, with every physical ailment, there's an emotional component. That's a famous saying. I don't know who said it, and I've turned it around. With every emotional ailment, there is, some physical manifestation. And so you cannot address a physical pain without addressing the emotions.
Mhm.
You have several comments here.
We do.
You do. Very nice. Compliments. Catherine Allen, I'm seriously interested in taking this course when available. You showed me
Good.
so much more that I want or need to learn. As usual, you are always a great speaker. Yes, you are, Catherine.
You're so sweet.
And then Rachel says, fantastic job, Kathy. Reinforces my excitement to learn more about sclerology.
Good. Thank you.
And then Tanya says, thank you, Kathy. This was so informative, and I'm definitely interested in taking the course. I have to go. Have a good night, everyone.
Oh,
So,
sweet, sweet.
yeah.
Well, I am just over the moon with sclerology, and what I would like to do is bring y'all over the moon with me, because it's fun, it's exciting, it's another way of using a beautiful tool to help our clients, and that's what I want to do. That's all I want to do is just help our clients. I'm not going to be able to fix anything, but I can sure point you in the right direction. And I can tell you based on what I see and what your story is telling me as I read your story, this is what I'm getting from your story. Because the eye is a story. It tells a beautiful, beautiful story. And I've just learned how to read it. That's all. So we will get this going. We will get this class going very, very soon. I just wanted to give y'all a little bite, a little sampling, little taste of it, and show you what I've done with it, and get y'all excited about it too. And
I think you did.
good. So we're going to get the instructors trained on this ASAP. We're going to get students rolling through pretty soon, and wow, we're just going to watch IIPA just get bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
I left the board, but I did not retire. I did not retire. I keep saying I retired. I really didn't retire because everything I do centers around iridology and that education. And I want to help as many people as I possibly can to learn it, to understand it, and help my clients benefit from it. And I kind of think that's probably why I'm here.
Good. We need you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. We need you too, dear. Well, I love every one of you, and I want to work with you in this capacity with sclerology, and we'll get it going ASAP.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. I appreciate you joining me tonight. Before you go to bed tonight, pray for California.
Yeah.
They need some thoughts and prayers and some water.
Water. Oof.
Water, and those winds
Mm-hmm.
need to go in another direction. Need to go in another direction. So keep California in your heart and in your mind this week, and just welcome 2025 and bless it. It's new. It's a baby. We're gonna rock that baby and love that baby, and and send it many, many blessings. So thank you guys. And I'm going to put this out on the Iridology Fusion YouTube page. So if you want to take it and share it and send it, please do so. Watch it again and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you,
Are you
Kathy.
are you gonna
Mhm.
send us a link by chance to the
When it gets
recording?
on that YouTube, you'll just be able to copy it yourself. You can go into my YouTube page and you just highlight that and be able to send it yourself. If
Okay,
you can't, email me and yes, I will send you a link. But you ought to be able to go to Iridology Fusion YouTube page, highlight that, embed that wherever you want it to go, and it'll do it.
okay.
Okay. All right,
Thank you.
guys. Good night. See you later.
All right.
Thank you,
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Kathy.
Bye.
Good
You're
night.
welcome. Bye bye.